Money Vikings, welcome back. Thank you for joining me. I have a very important one for you today. We're going to go through the top 5 estate planning basics. And I know it sounds boring. Hang in there with me because we're going to make it as action packed and as informative and straightforward as we can. It's just part of having a holistic look at wealth building and personal finance is having your estate planning basics in place. And the good news is, once you get them in place and you get everything done right, it's something that will help you sleep at night and you can just move on and live your life. That's what we all basically want to do. That's the way I felt when I had these things all completed and done. I just went on, put them in a safe place, and went on with enjoying and living my life and raising my family, etc. Let's get right into it. But with that, if we add value to your life and all of our true wealth building ways, please hit that like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it as we grow the channel. Here we go, estate planning basics. The big question is this: after a lifetime or a long career of accumulating wealth and hopefully building a really good set of passive income machines, maybe through your 401k, your self-directed individual retirement account or IRA, or maybe some real estate, or maybe a small business, whatever it might be, you've worked hard and you've accumulated some assets. You're now living off of some of those. But at the same time, life does happen. So we want to make sure that we're prepared for the unlikely events, but we also want to make sure that we're prepared for the far out future and passing any assets on to our family members, heirs, or a charity of your choice, something that meant or means a lot to you. Let's go with that. There is some good news. There's a few basic things that one can do that will really help make this easy. And I would advise up front of getting the help of an attorney. I think experts in this field, there's many of them, and you could interview 2 to 3 of them, see if you're comfortable with them, if you feel that their price is fair. And for typically a somewhat reasonable price, you can have all these documents drafted and put together. So with that, the first thing is will. Where there's a Will Shakespeare, okay, dad jokes. Where there's a will, there is a way. So what is a will? It's a legal document that specifies how your assets will be distributed after you pass. It can also name guardians for your minor children and appoint someone to manage your affairs if you become incapacitated. As you can see, a will is quite important in terms of designating how your assets are to be distributed when you pass on. A lot of this too can be very important for, I'm part of Gen X. Gen Xers are in between worlds at the moment. This hit me like a ton of bricks when I became a father. That's when, to me, it became very important to have these things in place. And I think that might be typical of a lot of people. When you start creating your own family, you are going to think about these things a lot more, or probably should. And at the other spectrum of that, you might be caring for an older parent or grandparent, and you might want to make sure that they have this information in place. And I pass this on because we want to pass the word that all these things are important to make people's lives just easier, more efficient overall. So the second thing, a power of attorney. What's a power of attorney? It's a legal document that gives someone else the authority to make decisions on your behalf if you become unable to do so yourself. Typically, this thing is tucked in the folder with the will and the revocable living trust that we'll get to, but that's essentially what a power of attorney does. The third thing, a healthcare directive. Just in case, a healthcare directive is a legal document that specifies your wishes for medical care if you become unable to make decisions for yourself. It can also appoint someone to make medical decisions on your behalf. Hopefully you'll never need it, but you know what? There might be a time, hopefully after a long, true wealth, healthy money Viking, vigorous life, you may need something like that in the final years so people can make some decisions on your behalf if you cannot make them for whatever reason. Typically, this would be something like life support. A lot of people would choose to say, at a certain point with life support, I don't want to be on it anymore, just let me pass on. Okay, probably the most important thing I want to mention is a revocable living trust. Trust is a legal arrangement that allows you to manage and distribute your assets during your lifetime, okay, and after you pass on. So it's called a living trust because it's formed while you're living. It's called revocable because you can make changes to it and modifications through the years. And that's typically what happens. But there are different types of trusts, so you want to see a trust expert, but most financial planners will recommend a revocable living trust. The trust document can be changed over time, And this helps to avoid probate, which can be expensive and time consuming, and it also helps protect privacy. The important thing about a revocable living trust is that your assets have to be put in the trust. You can't just create the trust. When you create the trust, you then have to put your assets, could be a home, could be a 401k, could be a retirement account, could be an investment brokerage account, could be real estate, whatever it might be. It has to be put in the name of the trust. So for example, if they're in a retirement account, used to say Jane Doe, you're going to want it to say the Doe Living Trust. That would be what the assets are put into the trust. So the trust is like a basket. The assets are put into the basket while you're living. It's a living revocable trust. And then when the person passes on, it distributes. And it's part of the trust and then distributed through the information and the will within the trust. That's that. And then there's also beneficiary designations on individual accounts. So this is another thing it's important to do. You're going to want to give instructions. Typically financial institutions or your different accounts can have you designate beneficiaries. So basically that's another thing that you want to have. That's the fifth element here and the fundamentals of estate planning. So hopefully that helps. One thing I wanted to add, there are things to consider, stuff that you do not want to pass on to heirs. There are notorious things, and there's three of them I want to mention. Timeshares are typically no fun to pass on to heirs, and I'm not a big fan of timeshares to begin with, especially in the Airbnb world and all that. Why pay for a timeshare? But that's personal choice, up to people. The second thing I want to mention are certain collectibles. Collectibles can be a very personal thing. We talk about collectibles a lot on this channel, and a lot of people, and my family included, are not going to be interested in my comic books and magic cards and all my other collectibles. I have to think long and hard about how those things are going to be accumulated and how long I want to hold on to those throughout life and enjoy them, because people just aren't interested in them, and they could basically, the heirs could not understand the value, get hoodwinked or whatever it might be, or just not be that interested. And the third thing are operating businesses. So operating businesses can be another major headache. Similar to the collectibles, heirs may have no interest or expertise in the specific business, and selling a business is a complicated and time-consuming endeavor, as you can imagine or may well know. With that, those are 5 estate planning basics. Really appreciate everyone watching and tuning into Money Vikings. Again, please consider liking and subscribing, or can subscribe and share as much as you can. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot, everybody. Be kind to yourself and be good to each other. Take care.